Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses here today. Appreciate it. You know, in Michigan, we're all too familiar with the tragedy of sexual abuse in sports, and we recently had to deal with the heinous actions of Larry Nassar. He's now serving a 175-year sentence, but certainly now is the time to make sure that we don't ever have another monster like him out there preying on our athletes and young people. So I want to thank Senator Moran, Blumenthal, and Cantwell for working with me on their bill, Empowering Olympic and Amateur Athletes Act, and talk a little bit about some of those amendments. As Colin, I authored language in the bill that would require the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee to terminate anyone who's retaliated against athletes who have spoken out about misconduct. My question to you is, how does Safe Sport currently follow up on suspensions and bans that are handed out?
So every time that the center publishes a ban or removes someone from sport, we not only notify the general public about this person, but we also notify each and every one of the national and governing bodies to ensure that those folks don't end up at a competition, at a training facility, because the purpose of those bans is to remove those individuals from sport.
And what steps can Safe Sport and other organizations do to encourage athletes to actually speak out and feel that they're going to be protected from being retaliated against, that creating that safe space? What are you doing, and what can other organizations do?
It's critically important that if someone has experienced abuse, whether it's emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, that they contact the center and speak up. You know, we certainly respect every person's and every claimant's, every victim and survivor, you know, ability to and desire to actually participate in this process. But it's really important for us to get that information from them and for them to speak up so that we can start to do those investigations. And we encourage them in a variety of ways. Not only do we have a number of resources available on our websites, we work with our NGBs to make sure that they have access to that information because communicating that to athletes is critically important.
Well, one area, and this is an amendment that I put into the legislation that passed out of committee here, was to require the Olympic Committee to hire a third party to consult with the U.S. Center for Safe Sport to conduct an anonymous survey to include questions related to sexual harassment. So if you could talk a little bit about that and what Safe Sport is currently doing to maintain that kind of anonymity and reporting.
Sure. So, you know, part of that is going to tell us a lot about culture and safety, culture of safety within the Olympic sport. And that will certainly help athletes to kind of share their voice, let us know what those concerns are so that we can continue to provide resources to better protect athletes. That is going to be critical moving forward so that we can get a real understanding. As I mentioned, there are 13 to 18 million participants in the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic movement. We've got to be able to get more information from them to understand what those issues are so that we can adequately address them.
Does Safe Sport have any concerns about a high-profile case being reported to the media before you've actually been able to do the investigations?
So it certainly complicates things, you know, because we pride ourselves on having, you know, doing unbiased investigations. And, you know, when reports are made to the media early on, some information may, you know, may come out that claimants don't want to, you know, want to protect their identity. But oftentimes, and this has happened on a number of cases, you know, the reports that come out through the media prompt an investigation. So this is another way for people to tell us, like, this is happening, look into this person, and then in certain cases, the center will open up that investigation.
In your testimony, you've talked about how you've increased your capacity because of more reports that are coming forward. You mentioned that the center receives more than 200 reports a month, I believe, in your testimony, which is a 500% increase. That's a very large increase. Mm-hmm. How are you able to resolve these cases and clear the backlog? Where are you in that process?
Sure. So when we first opened, we had one investigator. Which wasn't nearly enough because this is a very people-driven action when you're thinking about investigations. In the last 3 years, we've significantly increased our response and resolution staff, meaning that we have more and more investigators that are added, and we continue to hire those folks to participate in this process with us. That's going to be a big part of us moving forward, also ensuring that we have the funding to do that and hire investigators to do that. But as that process, and part of my job, is to make sure that we are continuing to look for efficiencies in the process. how can we continue to operate? How can we continue to do investigations effectively and thoughtfully, but also making sure that we provide resolution to those who go through our process as quickly as possible.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your answers, and thank you for your leadership on this issue. We appreciate you.